Good evening, students. Tomorrow we will discuss Chapter 6, Introduction to Consciousness. And in this unit, we will define what consciousness really means along with other objectives. So let's begin by seeing what we will talk about in this introduction. We will define consciousness as it relates to attention, define sleep and dreams. We're going to define stages of sleep, functions of sleep, sleep disorders. We're going to talk about altered states of consciousness and chronic effects of psychoactive drug use. So, what is consciousness? Well, we define consciousness as the awareness people have of themselves and the environment around them. If you are aware, you are conscious. If you're not aware of what's going on around you, then we're not conscious. So conscious is not static or that it doesn't stand still. It constantly moves in and out of our awareness as our states of mind and our environments change. So there are different states of consciousness which are associated with different patterns of brain waves. And brain waves are tracings of electrical activity that is going on in the brain. They are recorded using an electroencephalograph known as the EEG, which monitors electrical activity through electrodes placed on the scalp. And if you see these various brain waves, they are significant during our sleep: beta, alpha, theta, delta, delta, and we'll talk about sleep patterns in a few minutes. So when we talk about consciousness, we'll also talk about attention. And what is attention? Internal processes that set priorities for mental functioning, those things that we attend to. The brain uses attention to focus on selective parts of the environment while ignoring others. We can choose what we want to attend to and ignore that we don't want to attend to. And in dichotic listening, as you see in the diagram, a person listens to different spoken messages presented at the same time in each ear and shadows, or they repeats out loud one of the messages while ignoring the other. And it taps ability to attend selectively, which we will talk about selective attention and selective inattention. You have ignored inputs, attended inputs, and then you have a tendency to repeat that which was most significant that you attended to the most. And we will do a dichotic listening task in class so you can really see how this works. And what is the significance of sleep and how do we define sleep? Well, it is just one type of consciousness that we experience, and sleep comprises of several states of consciousness. It is periodic, which is a natural loss of consciousness, but it is distinct from unconsciousness that results from a coma or general anesthesia when a person is put to sleep, or hibernation. And even when we are sleeping, our brains and our bodies are continuously working. So sleep is temporary losses of consciousness. It is not permanent. So now we see the next topic, circadian rhythms. So what are they? Well, sleep is affected by biological rhythms or periodic physiological changes in our body. Biological rhythms are regular periodic changes in a body's functioning. Circadian rhythms are biological cycles that occur about every 24 hours, and it follows a circadian rhythm. So here in the diagram, when we talk about circadian rhythms, every 24 hours, beginning at midnight, and it goes periodically through 6 a.m., where we go through various body changes physiologically. Those are circadian rhythms. Our brain plays a very significant part of our bodies in sleep. We have what is called biological clocks that keep time for us, and they can be adjusted. Environmental changes, such as changes in temperature. And in the brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is the main biological clock located in the hypothalamus, it helps to regulate our body in sleep. And in humans, we have the pineal gland, which secretes melatonin, which is a hormone that regulates the sleep cycle, which is produced naturally by the body. So when a person is having a lot of sleep problems, a lot of time you can take the natural melatonin that you can buy over the counter to help regulate your sleep as well. Sleep has many different functions, and there are different theories that say why people sleep. And we will watch a video called Sleepless in America, which is a documentary that a doctor is talking about functions of sleep and what happens when you don't get enough sleep. But here it says people conserve energy by sleeping periodically. It has a protective function as it keeps people tucked away at night, safe from predators. And it restores our body tissues that are depleted during daily activity. It helps us restore that energy that we lost during the day. So when we are asleep, before we really fall into that deep sleep, we go through several different stages, and our brain exhibits different brain patterns. And in any one night's sleep, we go through 5 distinct stages. And stage 1 has 2 different cycles. It has an awakened state and it has a drowsy state, in which in stage 1 you're more relaxed, your heart rate, your breathing rate, and your body temperature drops, muscles relax. Then you get into that sort of dream fantasy stage. These are your alpha waves. And then in sleep in 1, you have theta waves where you're really not asleep, and you have different patterns that are found in the waking state, and you can see how it goes through the different diagrams and wave changes. And then in sleep 2, you have that what they call sleep spindles, and you have a mixed brain waves where they have the sleep spindles, or what they call the K complexes, and a person is really asleep at this point. Your brain, you can hear loud noises, but you're not really consciously aware of what's going on in your environment, and you just don't respond to it. Then during stages 3 and 4, here you see where your brain waves slowly gets lighter, and these are your delta waves, and you're in that deep sleep. Your breathing slows down, your pulse rate slows down, your muscles become relaxed, and you're difficult to arouse. And this is where those sleepwalkers are physically active during stage 4. It can be a very dangerous thing for them. Now, we have what is called REM sleep, or the rapid eye movement, and the non-REM sleep, or the non-rapid eye movement. And this occurs at the end of sleep stage 4, where you're kind of going back through all the stages in reverse. And by the time you get back to stage 1, you kind of in the REM sleep again, where your pulse rate and breathing becomes irregular, your eyes move rapidly under your eyelids, and your muscles remain very relaxed, and you're kind of in that right before you wake up. And this is where dreams usually occur, in that REM sleep. And the REM sleep is called paradoxical sleep, and you'll see this on your exam. Then we'll talk about dreams. If you remember when you studied the chapter, we talked about Sigmund Freud, where he believed that dreams manifested in the unconscious. But he said that that dreams have a manifest content, which is have that plot, which symbolizes the latent content or the hidden meaning of the dream. He said that dreams have a hidden meaning. And then there's the activation synthesis theory. He proposed that the neurons or those nerve cells are randomly active during that rapid eye movement. And he said that dreams arise when the cortex tries to make sense of those impulses. He said here dreams are a roadway into our unconscious. And if you look at the top diagram, you can see in the preconscious, you have those four processes of dream distortions or those revision of dreams. And then in the conscious, you have the manifest content of that storyline. And then in the unconscious is where you have those deep thought processes or that latent uh, processes. And he said that dreams fulfill our wishes or our desires. Now, we know that there are many different sleep disorders we will talk about, and we'll just talk about them briefly in this introduction. One of the most common sleep disorders is narcolepsy, which is the tendency to fall asleep periodically during the day, and they can just suddenly fall asleep without knowing it, and which can be a very dangerous thing, especially if they're driving or if they're operating machinery. Insomnia is another chronic sleep disorder where people have difficulty in falling asleep or staying asleep, usually lasting a period of at least 1 month, but sometimes insomnia can last longer. And if it does, then that's where the individual probably needs to have some medical attention. Another one is sleep apnea, which is very dangerous at times, where a person actually stops breathing when they're asleep and they wake up briefly gasping for air, and then they can't get enough sleep. And then during the day, they're very sleepy. And people who have problems snoring loudly, they don't realize that they're snoring, then this person probably has sleep apnea and usually has to have a sleep study done and has to have medical attention for it because it can be very dangerous as well. Then there's some other parasomnias, sleep disorders such as night terrors. People have nightmares, and then you have your sleepwalkers, and all of these are very dangerous, and we'll explore these more in detail. Then also during the chapter, we will talk about altered states of consciousness and what that is, and the things that alter our consciousness or our brains. And one of the altered states of consciousness we already talked about is hypnosis, where a person divide their consciousness into parts. And other theories say that people play a role when hypnotized, that they are willing participants. And if you look at this diagram, this divided brain, here you have the person who's hypnotized. So when told what to do, the unhypnotized person, when told to move, or the unhypnotized and pretending told to move, and they can either pretend to be hypnotized or not hypnotized. So it's an individual participation or person, which is no longer used today. Then we have meditation, which is also another altered state of consciousness, which is the practice of focusing attention where a person sits and they get in a relaxed position. And there are many benefits to meditation. For some people, they help them with their memory loss, helps improve their concentration, helps them to relax their emotions, reduce their anxiety or their depression. Even their digestion improves or help normalize the blood pressure, decrease the muscle tension, stress. And of course, today we know that yoga is one of the most common practices of meditation. Then we have the drug induced states, those psychoactive drugs that really alters a person's consciousness in many different ways. And we know that it affects different people in different ways, changing their sensory experiences, their perception, their mood, their thinking, definitely their behaviors. And it affects the neurotransmitter function in the brain, getting it out of balance. And it also, the effects of a drug depends on the amount of the drug that is used, the type of drug, the administration, the mood, definitely personality, and the motivation of the person that's using the drugs. And as you can see, these are common ones used, and we will classify these in the chapter, and we will talk about each one separately. And then chronic uses of psychoactive drugs we know are very harmful effects to the body. People go through withdrawals when they stop using the drug after a long period of time and they can't get the drug. They go through all kind of discomfort and distresses, especially if it's an addictive drug. And we know that different drugs produces different kinds of withdrawal symptoms in individuals. Then also other chronic use of psychoactive drugs, there's tolerance. Tolerance is when the drug is repeatedly used and it has built up a desired effect in the body, and a person can no longer get the same desired effects. And then they experience what is called neuroadaptation, or where the brain adapts to offset the drug effects in the body. Then you have psychological and you have physical dependence. Now, physical dependence is where the body responds to the drug absence. The user may feel physical pain and intense cravings that they can no longer, that their body has to have the drug in order for them to function, or they actually go through physical discomfort. Then you have psychological dependence, where they feel the need to continue a drug, such as to relieve negative emotions. They feel like they have to have it to make them feel better. It helps the problems go away. Then there's addiction, which is a craving for a substance despite adverse consequences, often with physical symptoms such as aches and nausea. So when a person is really addicted, they can't help it. The addiction is there. They come to depend on the drug psychologically, logically, as well as physically, and the tolerance is gone. They go through withdrawal, and they really just have a serious substance and drug abuse problem, and they must go into a rehabilitation or some type of treatment center and counseling. So this is just a brief overview of consciousness and the various states of consciousness and how different things can affect us in different ways. So following this video, complete your video quiz.